Hey guys, it's Fuzz and Becky with another episode of Hope and Mum and Dad podcast, documenting our IVF journey and speaking to some interesting people along the way. So number 11 today, they're kind of racking up slowly but surely, and we had a good friend of ours, Sarah Cottee, on. And if you want to give the listeners a bit of a sort of an introduction about that before we jump in back.
Yeah, so Sarah, as Fuzz says, is a really old friend of mine, and we got in touch with her because she has been really clever and innovative and developed a new kind of watch that tracks your menstrual cycle, and it all came about from some philanthropy work that Sarah was doing when she was living in Asia.
And so basically this is a device that doesn't need a smartphone or connectivity, and the main goal was to basically help those resource poor communities across the world where like period poverty is a real thing, but also like there's a lot of shame and stigma around it, which is kind of related to fertility and everything. So we were really interested and wanted to get her on and help her raise. She's got a crowdfunder, so if you believe in the cause and you want to help her out, you can go and check that out. There'll be links in the podcast description below or in the description on YouTube, wherever you're watching this. But it's a really good cause, and we really sort of think it's a great idea, so we're trying to sort of shout about it and help people get over to him.
And it was just really important for me to reach out to Sarah to get her on, because I've mentioned period poverty and menstrual cycles and lack of education a few times on Instagram and on our podcast here, and it's just something that I'm really passionate about and think needs to change. And obviously, so it's not an episode that's directly related to trying to conceive or infertility, but it's really interesting. And so if you have a menstrual cycle, then I definitely recommend that you carry on listening to the end.
Cool. Right, let's jump in. Episode 11, here we go. I'm going to hand you over to Becky and Sarah now, and
Hi, Saz, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to have my friend on the podcast. You're the first good friend. Obviously, I've made good friends on the podcast, but you are such an old friend.
Childhood. Yeah, exactly.
And it's so lovely to have you on. So basically, everyone who's listening, I've asked Sarah to come on and talk to you a little bit about her innovative invention, Immi watch, and to talk about a little bit more about menstrual cycles and period poverty and all sorts of different things. So Sarah, can I hand over to you and tell me a little bit more about yourself and what you've been up to?
Give us an introduction, as if we're
Do my job for me, please.
Yeah. You're all new to me. Well, I've been working on this idea for, it's actually 2 years now, which is quite crazy. And I came up with this idea for a watch that tracks your menstrual cycle, but doesn't require any connectivity to an app or a smartphone, because I was living and working in Southeast Asia for, actually it was about 9 years. And for the last year I was there, I was living in Manila, and I was working within this one organization that we were funding. It was one of our grantees. I just kept seeing this issue of women not knowing about their menstrual cycles and then the consequences that this can have. And just the fact that it's such like a basic thing about our bodies as women, and we've kind of like missed this education step. And then it has so many knock-on effects on the rest of your life if you don't know about it. Like obviously there's like the whole like, you know, your period and then fertility, but also just like your moods, your mental health, like potentially detecting other illnesses as well with like an irregular cycle. So in the Philippines, the problem was really, really exaggerated because it's such a Catholic country. So birth control is so taboo. And then talking about anything to do with like, you know, menstruation or like your fertility or like those kind of issues of health is also like not okay. It's like just completely off the table. And I really saw this, like one organization that we were looking into to fund, they used to go into schools and do like in-person education and teach these kids all about menstrual cycles and puberty and stuff like this. And they were like given a list by the school of words that they couldn't say.
What?
So it was like all these words that were like you can't say that. So they basically had to make up like their own language of like how to teach. And it was like everyone was doing like the absolute best they could with like what they were allowed to do. But I just saw that there was something, or I just saw that there was opportunity for something else, like something else to help in this education effort. And yeah, I knew that we had to have something that was not connected to an app or a smartphone, because not everyone has an app or a smartphone. And even if you do, often data is expensive. So a lot of the period tracker apps will use your data. And at the same time, you have to charge a smartphone, and like reliable electricity isn't always available as well. Or like there's lots of like brownouts where it just goes for a while. So I knew that we were like, had all these kind of like things that we had to not do, you know,
design
like,
criteria.
Yeah, exactly. Like a criteria of like what it couldn't be. And then it was actually, I was when I was on a plane one day, and I always feel like I do quite good thinking on a plane. You know, you look out the window and there's all the clouds, and you think like, oh,
I love plane journeys because there's not a lot you can do it's like a moment suspended in time, because you used to not be able to do your work, and now we're a bit more remote now, but it's a time to think, isn't it? And kind of contemplate if you're not watching movies.
Exactly. And like put all the things together. It's like your time to do the jigsaw, the brain jigsaw. And for me, it was kind of like trying to normalize menstruation as much as possible, and pairing it with time, because your menstrual cycle is just another measurement of time. And the fact that we know what day of August it is, but I don't know what day of my month it is. That's like bigger picture things of what we wanted to kind of change. So the concept of putting it into a watch seemed like it made sense. And then it seemed like, okay, well, a watch is like an accessory that anyone would wear, and it kind of like went on from there. But then obviously I was like, don't know anything about watches. So that then led on a 2-year journey.
So when it came to developing that, did you have to reach out to someone to help you kind of with the programming and the design and everything?
It's been a lot of people. I really came from like ground zero or minus 100, like knowing nothing about product, knowing nothing about hardware.
That could be a good thing, though. That could be.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. I think it like gave me a bit of in a way it gave me an edge, but then in a way, and then I just needed other people to like help.
Yeah.
So first of all, we actually I had a contact at Fossil Group, the watch company. So that was like an amazing first support, and they helped us quite a lot, and just to kind of conceptualize it, and then to get it to really, first of all, I just needed to know, like, is this even possible? You know, I didn't even know like if it could be something that was done. So that was all like, yeah, don't worry, like people are trying to get to the moon, like this is really quite easy. Like, oh, okay, cool. And then so then we had some support there, and then I brought my co-founder on board, she's a software engineer. So she's really like the brains behind the product. And then we started talking with a bunch of like design studios. There's all these like kind of big design studios who take you like on the whole like journey. But they were really quite expensive, and we had such a limited budget. We did a crowdfunding campaign, and you know, we were really like on a shoestring, and hardware just costs. It is hard. So we started looking at smaller design companies with just like maybe a few engineers who could just hack this together. And we found a duo in London who, they're great. They're called Embeddism, and they just they love just like making cool products.
Wow.
So we're like we've made our first prototype, which was like a kind of big one. It wasn't like a watch size. It was just like a big one, and that's like to test all the functionalities. And now we are about 4 weeks away now of having our first watches.
Oh my God, that's so cool, because it feels like it must be so exciting for you. It's a bit like your baby, because it's been in your brain for ages, and I know since the GoFundMe kind of happened in January over Christmas time, didn't it? And you reached your target before the time limit, didn't you? Which was really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It's so exciting. And going back to what Fuzz said about it being beneficial that you kind of didn't have that knowledge with the software and stuff, the other kind of string to your bow is that you have this, what I love, this kind of background history in your family with your gran, Gags, who she's famously known as.
Yeah, Gags was a bit of a powerhouse.
Yeah.
She was Irish, and she was one of, I think, 8, but actually there's like sometimes a bit of a confusion around how many siblings there were. But a few died in childhood as well, because very poor, living on a farm in Ireland, and actually none of them were allowed to. Well, none of them could carry on their education past age 14, because then you had to like pay a bit in Ireland at that time.
It's kind of a similar kind of setup to how the Philippines is in a way now in modern day, because obviously the whole Catholic side of Ireland and the poverty going on in the Philippines now, that would have been similar back when she was a kid, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the schooling that it's like free up until a certain point, and then you would have to pay to like carry on. But basically, like, the nuns came to the house and were like begged her parents to let her stay. They were like, she's actually like a bit smart. Like, she really, if she stayed on at school, she could earn more money, and like she could send it back to the family, so it would really be beneficial.
That's amazing.
So they did. They managed to like, keep her on in school, and then she trained to be a midwife, and she moved over to Liverpool. And she trained, she trained in like Rochdale or something. Anyway, she went on to have 5 kids, and she was the community midwife in one area of Liverpool. And it was like, in those days, it really was like, it was so, the health work was completely community based. So they had like, I think they had like a plaque, maybe not a plaque, but like a sign, like everyone knew that's where the community midwife lived.
A bit like Call the Midwife.
Yeah, I actually think it was. Yeah. And then she also was, she took part in a lot of the early research that was done. It was actually done at the University of Birmingham on natural family planning. So this like looking at your cycle, the amount of days you have in your cycle, your temperature and your cervical mucus. And from there, like, figuring out if they could find, the ovulation time, or if they could get more specific. So I guess this was back in like the 60s. And my mum and her sisters were some of the early guinea pigs. So Gags would like wake them up every morning and like stick a thermometer in their mouth, and they had these charts and would record all their temperatures, and then like have. We never went into this, but I feel like she had to ask about like that.
They had to go looking for their cervical mucus. Like, it's such a funny thing. It's so common, like in the trying to conceive community, that people talk about it, but it's like, oh, who's going to talk about that in real life? But it shouldn't be because it's so natural. It just doesn't sound nice, does it? They could have picked a nicer name, mucus, like on its own.
I know, and discharge. Like neither are like nice enough.
Yeah.
So I guess they had to like update Gags on how that was looking. And then even I remember one of my aunties saying, like, then a few years later they started asking for urine samples as well for measuring the pH. So then one of my aunties, she kind of like got a call from her mom, like, now you need to send your urine samples to Birmingham University. So just kind of like obliges.
You could just do that at home with a litmus paper, though, couldn't you?
Maybe not then.
No, that's
I wonder, or if maybe they, I don't know, gathering.
So the actual watch itself, that's quite impressive. But thinking about it, I was thinking, like, I've got fitness trackers and things like that for training and things, and I was just thinking, I wonder if you could, like, how did you, like, do you borrow, like, what extra bits do you have to put in to make it work, like?
Yeah, actually not that much. It's the difference is
fitness trackers need connectivity though, which is
right.
Which doesn't work for the problem that you're trying to solve. But
yeah. So that's like one part then that the watch needs. It has to have this memory, and that will be one of, as we go forward, that will probably be one of the difficult, I mean, one of the many difficult things, because obviously it just is like, if you think about it, like, because a watch is so small and you have to fit everything in it. So the memory at the moment, I think for this first version, our memory is like 12 months essentially. But we would really be looking at upping that. The battery life is all fine, like nothing needs to be innovated in terms of the battery. It's our specific programming, so like the chip is basically the different thing.
Do you base it off another chip though?
Yeah.
Is it an ARM based one, do you know? No.
Well, not at the moment, but I mean, when we go into mass manufacturing, it easily could be.
Yeah, I was going to say, because like that's at the moment there seems to be a lot of disruption worldwide with tech in general, just from like, coronavirus and stuff like that. So like I remember needing some drone stuff for work that I do, and that just kind of, there was massive back orders and people couldn't get stuff. So hopefully none of that's like affected manufacturing or anything. And it's probably smart to make your own thing, because then that way you're in control of the supply line.
Yeah, I mean, the whole manufacturing game is also just another world that I'm like dipping my feet into now. But there's a lot of like, I mean, it's a bit boring, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff in terms of where you source things from and making sure you source it all from different places, and then you kind of assemble it in a centralized point. But yeah, just to kind of protect things, and also just for costs, and for like to kind of keep your supply chain a little bit decentralized is like always a good idea.
Yeah, in case you have a snag somewhere.
Yeah.
So basically that stuff that your grandma kind of was pioneering in those times back with the University of Birmingham, and all that information that she's given you and you've learnt from her and your family has kind of helped you pioneer this new thing. It's amazing. So cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. And we named the company after her as well.
Yeah.
So her middle name was Imelda, so Immi.
Yeah.
Not she was called Immi, but we just shortened it for the company.
It works really well, I think.
It's nice. Yeah. Yeah, it was lovely. It was really, it felt like that. It felt like it's just this, the way that she would do it, because she would obviously take these lessons back to her community, and there was a huge Irish Catholic community in Liverpool, like still is, and she would teach a lot of the women, like either in terms of conception or in terms of contraception, about this method, and encourage them to start taking their temperatures and all of this. So she was really passing these messages on in the community, and it really feels like that. I mean, obviously we're not kind of touching. We're not necessarily in the like fertility space.
No, but the kind of...
But the lessons, the education of it is definitely like where we sit. And this concept of being able to do this at scale, that I think that's really the beauty of the watch, is having this tool that's like pretty foolproof. And it's like cheap and can kind of teach you by using it yourself. So like the scalability was like a really important factor for us.
I think that's what's really interesting about it, and I've touched on it a little bit before, the whole aspect of period poverty. And obviously we understand that it affects people in third world countries and in places with great deprivation, and how it can affect women's education, or anyone who menstruates. It can affect them however they experience it. But what was kind of... Are you okay first? What was interesting was that it even happens here, doesn't it? That's what I'm really interested in. And the whole kind of that education doesn't happen, like you've just touched on earlier. There's no education even here. Like we get like a hour long lesson kind of when we're in primary or secondary school, and it's like, okay, go on, off you go, like go and have your period for the rest of your life, good luck.
I know, and I was talking to you about that, wasn't I, like a few months ago, because it's only just become compulsory on the curriculum in this year in 2020. And that's also like kind of I mean, this is a point just on like our semantics, but we always try and say low resource communities, because actually it's exactly like you say, like whether you're in the UK or the Philippines, like there's high resource and low resource communities, and we've seen that like sadly period poverty just is across the board. It isn't like, I mean, maybe in like Scandinavia it's probably better, but like they're a bit better at everything. But even for us, like you said, there's not like that that we don't have that education step in school. So we're working with, there's one organisation that we're going to pilot with in the UK. They're called Freedom for Girls, and they're based up in Leeds. And they work with communities there. So they work with, it's quite a wide range in terms of the age group they work with. But yeah, they do a lot of work with the food banks in terms of like people who donate the menstrual hygiene products. And then yeah, we're gonna give them our watch to pilot with some of their beneficiaries as well.
Which is really cool, because the whole thing around the education that we had, and that it goes off textbook, like, oh yeah, your cycle should be 28 days and your period should be between 4 and 5 days, or 4 and 7 days. But that's not the same for everyone, and that's why your watch is so amazing, because it's personalized. And all those other like Fitbits or apps, fertility apps, or menstrual cycle apps, they go off these algorithms that presume that you have a normal cycle, whereas yours is individual to the wearer. Am I right?
Yeah, it is. It still has to, for the first data you enter, you have to give it some parameters. So it's basically like the more you input, the more it will average out your cycle.
Yeah.
But I think also it's just that concept of I can't find like a proper analogy for this, but you know, when there's something that you're trying to track, or you're like having to learn about that happens like over a long period of time, having like a lesson about it doesn't really help you, because it's not happening right then. It's happening every day.
Yeah.
So it's something you need to kind of do or be aware of every day. So that's why as well we were like wanting to pair it with like, you know, a watch you look at every day. You always look at the time. So it's like this concept of it becoming just something very normal that you track, and like, oh, I'm on day 23. Cool. Like it's just the kind of embedding that into your standard knowledge is like the dream.
Yeah, it is. It would be the dream. And I think it's so interesting that you said earlier about the menstrual cycling. There we go again with my word weirdness. The menstrual cycle being just another form of time, like another measure of time. And it's kind of a bit matrixy, that kind of there's obviously this kind of given time that everyone adheres to. But then we all have our own little calendars internally.
Yeah. It's really cute, isn't it? It's like birds, like how they migrate or something.
Yeah.
Like the body clocks that are inside them. It's like we all have like this thing as well.
Yeah, I was talking to pupils a while ago about religious calendars too, and how in different religions in different countries, they're not in the same year as us. And they were like, what? And I was like, I said, I don't really, I can't teach you enough about it because I don't know enough about it myself. But it's interesting for us to look into, because there's different timelines going on all the time, even in our own dimension. Like, and it's really kind of, wow. Kind of trippy to think about.
I know.
Yeah, so it's just really cool. I'm just really interested in what you're doing. So what's the next step for Immi? You said you're like 4 weeks away from the watches being made, which is cool.
Yeah, we're really close to getting the first one. So we're going to have 5 that we get, and then what we'll do is we'll start wearing them and test them. So we'll see like how, if it's like intuitive enough, if we like the design, if like the buttons are kind of like in the right place, because we've made up different icons. Like another part of the watch was that we didn't want any words, because maybe like not everyone speaks English or like understands the letters. And so we've created different icons to show when you're in your most fertile window, and to show when you're due on your period. So we'll kind of be looking at all of this, and just to see if it like makes sense.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I just thought though, you know, like you were talking about being in a fertile period and a last fertile period. To different people, they could be different. Each one could be positive and negative and be switched. So like for a single person that's trying not to get pregnant, the infertility, infertile window is the good time. Cool.
Get it on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if that's what you're trying to use natural cycling for.
Yeah.
And then, but I mean, if you're trying to conceive, then it's the fertile window that's like, cool, this is what we need.
Let's go
upstairs.
So
no, but just interestingly, because that's quite a tall feat to achieve, to do that without words, by symbols and icons, because in different cultures they have different symbols and like things, different colors mean different things.
But it's amazing. I guess they'll come with a manual or something, I assume.
Oh yeah.
So
but did you think about it yourself? Did you kind of have any thoughts on it before you developed it?
Yeah, we did a whole survey around it, because it was that was exactly our issue. We were looking at symbols that we could do, and again, like the first versions we're using it's not a custom screen, so we're using like an existing digital watch screen. So if you think of a digital watch, it's all the little LED like do 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 do. So you couldn't make like a cloud. It has to
you
be
can
like
make a Tamagotchi egg though, right?
You can make a Tamagotchi, yeah. So
they work really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like this, and this is also it's like that gamifying. That's also
you can look at it, and but like everyone knows what it is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like everyone, kids in Japan had them, and kids over here had them, and they'd be the same thing.
Of a certain generation, we found out from a family quiz that actually not everyone knows what Tamagotchis are.
My brother Seb used to have like key rings. He was like a day center for Tamagotchis. He'd have like key rings with about 20 on. Yeah, but kids in Japan could look at it and they go, oh, I need to clean up his mess, or I need to feed him, or whatever. And kids over here could do it too. Like, it's really, I'd be really interested to see it as a photographer and an artist and stuff. I'm really interested in like how, icons and symbols work and stuff like that.
And how they are international.
Yeah, and so it's an LCD screen, and it's like not a color screen. It's like a Casio.
Yeah, just a black and white screen. And so we were concerned about this. We thought, we don't want to be using symbols that have a completely different meaning, or it was more if they had an existing meaning, which was like a very clear existing meaning. So we did a kind of full survey, and we're asking all of our partner organizations, and then generally other people. And our main focus was people who we were looking at what language people speak, because we wanted to understand if the symbols have any significance in different spoken languages. But no, nothing, luckily. So we kind of went ahead with what we chose. We'll be testing these 5, and then I mean, we manufacture, we have our first 500, which is like the first main key milestone. And we start doing this pilot. So we have 6 organizations that we're going to pilot the watch with. So we will donate the watch, and that's what we did the crowdfunding campaign for. So we donate the watch to them, and then we monitor it over a 6-month period of how it's being used. We have like baseline surveys that are conducted every month for each of the women who receive a watch, to see what's changed, whether it's like, their confidence, their knowledge of their cycle, their ability to manage their whole menstrual cycle, like what's shifting and what's not. And then that just allows us to kind of start narrowing down. And then so our main target market is working with big organizations like the UN or the Gates Foundation or something. And the goal is for them to buy the watch. We're trying to keep our costs around $10, but $10 to $20 is kind of where our wholesale costs are looking at. And then we want to also go into like the second phase of the watch. Would be, well, we want to like redesign and then like look at making it smarter as well, and see if there's any possibilities to do kind of like data collection stuff, which could be really cool. It could then provide people with their own menstrual history, for example, is something that they could then be able to access. So
that would be really helpful.
So it could work on its own, but also have connectivity.
Yeah.
Still, but exactly, our criteria would still be there. So we would.
It would still work.
Yeah. So it's once you've done the philanthropy stuff, which is where it's come from, like helping those people that need it in Colombia and Philippines and the other places you've mentioned before. Will it be available to people here? Like, I know when you did the GoFundMe, you did like one for me, one for her.
Yeah, one for one. Yeah. It was kind of like a market that I hadn't anticipated.
Yeah.
Because I guess when I was living in Asia, I was like, oh, everyone must just, I mean, in Hong Kong as well, like, it's just, everything is connected. If you don't have like a connected device, you're just like a loser.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, maybe that's the same in England or like other places, like people just always want smartwatches or whatever. It's just like this, it's not cool to not have one. But yeah, that was different, like especially when we did the crowdfunding and people were like quite keen on buying one for themselves. Like we had more interest in that than I was anticipating. So yeah, we would love to. We've talked with one commercial retailer in the UK who were quite interested, and then we'll kind of decide on what our strategy is, whether we like become, we sell the watch ourselves, or if we continue to sell it like through other like shops or e-commerce stores. Yeah,
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, but it would be cool.
Yeah,
it'd be amazing if it was like suddenly if it was really popular as well with like
everyone, the everyday person.
Everyone.
Yeah,
every single person.
Because I think there could be quite a big market in it over here. I don't know about the female perspective on it, but basically there seems to be if people can buy something that's less connected to perform a function in everyday life where they don't have to rely on their phone, I think it's becoming a new market now.
Yeah,
for example, fitness watches, some of them have the ability to hold music on, which means you can leave your phone, which means like most people like to listen to music when they go for a run. Most people don't have music players anymore because they keep it all on their phone.
Yeah.
So a select few of these fitness trackers have the Spotify built in. You download your playlists and then you go off for your run.
Yeah.
And then you've left your phone, which is kind of cool because we've got this nagging weird attachment to phones these days, haven't we? So if there's a way to do your everyday life and function without it, then that's cool. But then also paying for stuff as well. Like that's another thing that they chucked into the watch, which you don't need to take your phone out for.
Yeah,
it's weird. It kind of creeps me out how like attached I am to my phone. But I need to be. It's weird.
Yeah, it's nice to have switch off, no digital stuff. And I think it would be awesome to have it go like global and just for there to be a shift in how we understand our bodies better. And for anyone that menstruates, whether they're women or trans or anything, like it's the whole market's widening up now as the world changes, and especially kind of people are realizing how dependent, like you say, that we are on technology, and some people don't like that. So coming away from Fitbits, or there are other devices
Garmin
available.
Devices also.
Those
people are getting
smart watches kind of is
they do harvest a lot of data on you as well, and location and stuff. So like,
GPS tracking and all that stuff. So
it's fine. It's necessary to make it work, but it's just something people don't really think about, I think.
Yeah, and I think for us as well, it's like, because this isn't necessarily like the all we're measuring is your days. We're not looking at your temperature or your cervical mucus. So it is like the basic knowledge. Yeah. It's the same as what the apps give you, but it's not. It's really like a start. It can be seen as like a starter tool as well. So I think that when we were talking with this, like the commercial retailer in the UK, and they were seeing it as something that would be really interesting for people who were either just starting their periods or even just about to start their periods, as like a kind of like learning thing. And like and if it's just like a cool watch, then you kind of don't mind. It's just something you're wearing in any case. So that's like that I think is where we really see potential. But at the same time, like, as I made this for myself as well, as much as I made it for like people who don't have a smartphone. It came from a need for me as well, because I just kept forgetting to put my data into the apps. Like I couldn't not forget, and it was like so dumb. I felt so dumb because it's like it should be so easy. You just have to open an app and like put it in, but I just couldn't remember. And so I was like,
life is just busy, isn't it?
It's like
simple.
But the demands, I find that with your menstrual cycle as well, the demands of life get in the way, and it's not until after the fact that you're like, oh, that's why I was moody, like because next week I'm going to be like on my period, or or I didn't realize I had backache because of this. I thought it was because I did gardening, or I pulled myself at the gym the other day, like, and having that kind of deeper understanding on your wrist,
Yeah.
and like a reminder constantly.
But
You're
it'd be-
never going to get caught out, really.
It'd be kind of cool because there isn't anything like this out there. But it would be kind of cool if it was like, you know, a gift for girls, like you said, going into puberty or just starting. Because then I guess you could. I don't know how you would, but you could maybe talk to these girls and kind of try and guess when it might start happening.
Yeah.
And then that way they might not freak out as much because they're kind of talking about it and they're like, well out of my depth here because I don't know how
That's why I contacted Sarah a few months ago talking about Immi, because sex education obviously happens at the later stages of primary school, and we were putting some packs together for the girls. I'm not in I'm not teaching that phase at the moment, but like I was aware of it and it's interesting to me, and I think it would be really good.
But isn't there a massive
education.
variance? Like, again, you guys know more about this than me, but isn't there a massive variance between like when like basically girls could start when they were like 11 and girls can start when they're 14?
Textbook, it's like in your early teens, kind of. Maybe even before your teens, but there are children in primary school who start their menstrual cycles like from year 4 up.
It might be tricky to
when they're 8. There's also
get the right time to get it to them then.
I think it's
sorry.
No, you go, Sarah, because you're the expert, you know.
Well,
you are. You know more than me.
But I think that's also why we've kind of put some, in a way, like checks and balances on the product itself, because of this concept that, you know, a lot of people's cycles are irregular. And I get asked that question a lot, like, well, what about people with irregular cycles? And it's like, well, by default, they're not regular. They cannot be tracked the same way because of being irregular. However, a lot of people don't even know if they have a regular or irregular cycle because they're not tracking it yet. And so this is kind of also where we're sitting. And also it's just that, you know, learning about your or tracking your menstrual cycle isn't just something that we should all be doing in the early years of our menstrual cycle. It's something that we should be doing for our whole menstruating life, really.
Yeah, like you said about picking up things that are going on in your body elsewhere.
Exactly, because then especially when you get older, you know, if your cycles start getting irregular, either it can be an indication of like real stress, or like, you know, you have like, you should really check in on your mental health a little bit more. Or it can be more things like endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, even diabetes as well. So these kind of things, again, it's important to track if there's any changes.
Yeah, and with my thyroid, I skipped a period and then had really like strangely light ones, which like were barely nothing. So it definitely can, like your medical kind of history definitely comes out in your cycle too. It's another kind of marker, like
it's
you
like
said.
Checking your weight or, you know, blood, you know. That's
exactly.
It's just like a thing to keep an eye on to be healthy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like another health metric that should be tracked. And the other point I was going to say was that fertile window. Again, it can be like so. I mean, it's not an accurate time of ovulation at all if you're only tracking your days. But there is a broad window, and we've kind of purposefully kept it very broad. Yeah. So actually, it's like it'll only like start to get smarter if the watch detects that you have a regular cycle. Yeah. So at the beginning, we're actually going off what the World Health Organization suggests, which is day 8 to day 19. Mm-hmm. It's classified as your kind of fertile window. So it's a long, you know, it's half your cycle. It's a really long window.
So if people are using it for contraception, that you're being safe by making it such a big broad window.
Yeah. Well, you should always use condoms.
Yeah. But I mean, if people like we're not condoning that at all. Like if you don't want kids, then you should use protection, obviously. But if someone were to, hypothetically, then that is actually you're building it in safe to do it that way by making it broader.
Yeah, a bigger window, and then basically it will start getting slightly shorter. We're still kind of like tweaking that that algorithm, but it will stay either at a 7 or 8 day window when it starts to learn your average cycle. So depending on what your average cycle is, then it will get smarter, and then you'll get the notification then. But yeah, it's also this link between, I think a lot of the times especially when you start menstruating, or even like way into, I'm just remembering like a story personally, because I was going to say at the beginning, when you like start menstruating, you don't quite understand the link between your cycle and your fertility. But then I was like remembering a story, and actually I think you can be in your mid-20s and still not quite understand the link between your cycle and like your fertility. So I think that's a big thing. That's a big part of the feedback that we've been getting from our nonprofit partners of educating about that is like something that's quite difficult, and something that like isn't done as much. So in a way the watch kind of does it all, just integrates it all into one.
I want to see it now. Maybe could we get you back on when you have a demo? And also, did you have are you connected with any, like when you're sending it out for beta testing and stuff, like obviously you have to do that through companies and third parties and stuff to, I guess, but do you have any contact with people directly that might have it?
The what, sorry?
When the watch, when you get the I guess the demos, like you send them out, but when you send them out and do all the surveys and things like that, that's done through a company, I imagine, right? Or is that, do you do it personally, or are you involved in that?
So we kind of, the organizations that we've chosen to pilot with are ones, actually most of them are ones that I know from my past life working in Asia.
When I was a frog.
It looked like that, didn't it? Just jumping in.
Ribbit.
And then and the most important part is that all of these organizations already have some kind of program around menstrual health and hygiene. So they'll either already have workshops where they teach about menstrual health and reproductive rights, or like it comes a lot into this program called WASH program. So it's all about water and sanitation and health. So then the watch is basically provided as like another piece of the puzzle.
I thought it would be cool to speak to someone who had basically trialed it for a while, though. That's what I was getting at. I was basically
That'd be cool.
Yeah, we could maybe conference them in.
And where can people find out more about Immi Watch, Sarah?
Probably our website is immiwatch.com, and we are at Immi Watch, but we're really not very active on social media, so that will change in the next few months.
Yeah, and Immi is IMMI, isn't it?
IMMI.
We'll put all this on the screen because obviously people can find this podcast everywhere you get podcasts, on Apple and YouTube and stuff like that, but we'll put some links in as well. And is there anything, can we point, so right now the watches, we're waiting for demos, and then you will have a final production one coming soon. But at the moment, for people in the UK, you can't buy one yourself right now, but you can buy one for other people. You can add to the fund for other people. Is that right?
Yeah, actually the crowdfunding campaign is kind of still ongoing. So
cool.
If you want to snab one, then you can.
Definitely.
Wicked. So yeah, we'll point people over to that, because by supporting that crowdfunding campaign, you will be helping period poverty across the world.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
Which is really important. And in the future, you never know, you might be able to bag your own Immi watch and use it to help you better understand your menstrual cycle, and maybe even help you conceive if maybe you use it with a thermometer too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And I guess I can't stress enough like how important it is to kind of just learn about your cycle. I'm still learning all the time. So yeah.
Me too. But it really is.
I feel a bit redundant in this conversation.
Oh, don't be. No, it's interesting.
I mean, I'm interested in the social, political, economical impact that it's going to have on resource poor communities. Is that the way to say it? Yeah. I mean, because, we all sit here with our laptops and iPads and phones and stuff, and our life is completely different to the people in Southeast Asia, and especially the political side of it, and these kids going to school not even allowed to say I'm on my period. That's bananas. But we
It
don't
is
even know about it because we.
Not even being allowed in school.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I didn't-
shocking.
Yeah, and we sit here in our perfect little world,
Yeah.
unaware of it. So by doing it, by buying a watch, or I don't know how the crowdfunder works. I might be butchering this, but basically, is it you buy one for someone else? That's the crowdfunder.
Yeah, the crowdfunding, you can either just buy one for someone else, or you can buy one, donate one.
Oh, wicked! So
Yeah.
either way, you're making a difference and helping those communities.
Yeah. And also, Fuzz, you're not redundant because whatever your gender, you're interacting with people who have menstrual cycles.
And I guess women
and you're really supportive, actually.
want to talk, but I think, again, maybe I hope I got the right idea with this, but I think the whole point that you guys are saying is that like we shouldn't make it a big deal that you can't talk about all this stuff.
No.
So you should be able to chip in with family or friends, even if they are guys, and say, I'm on my period and I need this and I need that. And
there shouldn't be shame surrounding menstruation. Like, and you are really good at not doing that because like when we first started going out, I'd be like, but you're really open and you're like, do you need anything from the shop? Like, and you'll go and get things for me and talk to me about it. And you're a very progressive man.
You'll be in the shop and I'll be like, back, this one or this one.
But you should be able to do that and there'd be no shame also.
I'm joking, I don't.
I know, and also like the whole thing around the mood, like how, like for me, it's normally about, actually it's normally about like 6 days and then 5 days before my period starts. Are normally my worst, and then it gets a little easier, and then my period starts and it's all fine. But it's normally like the day 6 and day 5 before I start bleeding. And it's so nice when you can have like men in your life who are just like don't fuel the fire on those days, or like it's just like kind of get just like,
I don't know
like
if I'm
a
like
little
that
bit.
though. I think Becky would say that I'm fueling the fire. I annoy her quite a lot.
Well, maybe you need a watch as well, so you can track her cycle, and then you can have a look and be like, oh, okay.
Well, I try and be sensitive, but I don't want to act different. I don't want to pander to you because I think that could be seen as like
you are sensitive. And
whatever
supportive.
I do, I could do the wrong thing. If I go, are you okay? Do you want some chocolate? I've always got Haribo and chocolate hidden in case of emergencies. But
That's good. I mean, it's actually there's nothing you can do though. Really, I feel like it's like the person themselves is just like going through that feeling,
But at least you don't have to hide it from from me. Whereas I couldn't imagine how you would how you could live your life where for like 2 weeks of the month or a week and a half or whatever of the month you'd have to pretend like this is not happening to you and just be internally like on fire, pissed off, and then have to like not be able to talk about it. Everyone's got to pretend like it's not a thing. That'd be weird.
Or not go to school, like Sarah said, in some of the countries.
Not go to school or not eat at the table with everyone else. Like in some cultures, there's like the situation is really, really bad in some cultures for people who like when they're menstruating are just completely shunned and seen as really dirty. It's like this concept that you're dirty because you're having to bleed something out, so you must have like the devil in you, not the devil, but you must have like bad stuff in you. So it's very,
it probably goes hand in hand as well with that kind of in some like medieval kind of thought that women's use is to like have children, and then even though they need to have that menstrual cycle to have the children, they're disgusting at the time they have it, and then if they can't have children, then they're kind of not worthy.
You can't have your cake and eat it.
They're useless. It's
all connected and all healthy and all like whatever.
That's like just the thing that drives me mad, because like at the bottom of all of this, it's like menstrual cycles are the only reason we're all alive.
How did it get such a how did it get so like loaded and have all this connotation?
Lack of understanding, I guess, and people in power making it that way.
Is there any culture or wherever in the world where it historically it's been embraced and it's been like like not a bad thing? That would be awesome if it was.
Some matriarchal societies, it's fine.
Maybe ancient culture as well.
Yeah, but I think in the patriotic societies, it's just been it's looped in with just other issues of like
oppression,
women being seen less as men, I suppose, and then that's just like people have chosen that as like a reason why.
It's
Well.
been so amazing talking to you, Sez. I feel like
it's been so lovely.
We'll definitely get you back though. When things move in, and we'll share any updates and stuff, and we'll always be popping things across.
there's so many things that we could talk about that I'm just like blah 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 blah.
I know. It's been so nice to be part of this as well.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for inviting me.
Thanks for coming on. It's really interesting, and I think you've got a lot to say and do for the world. So it's good to be able to shine the light on it.
Cool.
Thank
So
you.
we'll drop all those links. Go and check it out. Immi Watch. Make sure you share some love and support and help out those poorer communities that need they don't need, but they could use the help.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sez.
Bye.
Bye. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoyed seeing someone take an idea and make it happen. And not only is that amazing, just because we know Sarah, but to say, oh cool, Sarah's just had an idea, and boom, before you know it, it's in production, engineers are on board, everything's happening. But that someone can do that, and it's going to make a huge difference to all those communities far away.
Yeah.
And close to home, I guess. So it's really, really awesome to see someone doing, to be creative, dream big, because she wasn't an engineer or a whatever. She admitted, didn't she, in the thing that like this is all completely new to her.
Yeah.
How awesome is that to go boom, idea, okay, how do we make this happen, and then just go and do it. But the best thing about all of it is that hopefully it's going to bring a lot of positive change to communities and help a lot of people.
And I just really enjoyed it because anytime I talk to Sarah, I have lots of fun. I think she's such an interesting person, and I'm so proud of everything that she's achieved already. And like you said, it's hopefully going to bring about huge change for lots of communities around the world and loads of people who menstruate. So that's really amazing. I hope you enjoyed it. We don't really have much.
No, we're stuck in
update.
that kind of like corona limbo of nothing happening.
Well, trying infertility limbo, really. It's
well, we know what's up. We know what we need to do. Just waiting on the latest thing we got to wait for is a phone call for some DNA tests.
Yeah, still waiting on that phone call. So we will be sure to update you when we find out more. And just keep positive, everyone. It is a long wait. Wherever you are in your cycle or your journey, we know that it's long and hard.
It'd be nice to get someone maybe completing like towards the end of one of their IVF trips.
Yeah, I've contacted a few people, so hopefully in the next few weeks
get some positivity, some positive stories, because like it would just be nice. I think we could all.
It would be nice. Yeah,
do that.
But like you said last week, also it would be lovely to hear more about people and who've had experiences with loss and sad times too, because it's a broad spectrum of emotion, a roller coaster when you're going through this. So keep in touch and reach out to us, please, if you would like to be on.
And we'll see you in the next one.
Mm-hmm.